Hello, everyone. So, welcome back to Venturis Stories. So, it is middle of Feb, which means something is in the air. And before you all get excited, for all the telecom professionals, it's not love. We are not going to be talking about Valentine's Day. It is Mobile World Congress. So, Mobile World Congress, or MWC, as we all telecom professionals know it, is the industry's largest trade show. Happens in one of my favorite cities in the world, Barcelona, for the last several years. And it's where everybody in the industry meets, all of the latest trends are discussed. So Arjun and I, being from the telecom route, and given that it is MWC time, decided that for today's episode, we are going to go back to our telecom roots. And we are delighted to be joined by two telecom industry stalwarts, Michel Gannage and Stephen Spellicy. I'll let both of them introduce themselves in a few minutes. So today's episode is actually going to be again about product thinking, but with a twist. We are actually going to examine Ecrio, which is Michel's company. Michel is the CEO there. Ecrio's journey from a product thinking lens. Ecrio has been long time in communication and messaging software technology. They've been in the industry for some time, and how they've gone through this journey and messaging has been around. It is not a new technology, but and it has gone through its hype cycles, ups and downs. However, now with the private wireless adoption and things like Industry 4.0, there is sort of a new wave that it is new product S curve that it is poised to ride on. And we want to help illustrate how actually applying product thinking lens to this can help unlock the trapped value and launch a new product S curve that may not seem that obvious if you just look at it from a pure technology lens. So with that, Michel and Stephen, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you here today. And maybe let's get started with a brief introduction, and you can frame it in the context of the conversation today that I just had to the stage for.
Thank you, Gaurav. So I'm Michel Gannage, and I'm the CEO of Ecrio. So I'll give you a brief story or a brief trajectory of what we've done here. We're basically in the communications software business, all IP based, and we started out when basically in the beginning of the 3G era, where some of the services were going to be switching from circuit switch to packet switch and all over IP. And we, at that time, we saw that IMS was being a standard that 3GPP was adopting, so we jumped on that standard. And the very first service that was talked about at that time was push to talk. And I don't know whether you recall that NTT Docomo was one of the leading operators that had introduced 3G, and they were looking for new services. And basically they decided that push to talk would be a good service to go for. So we went along. They looked at different vendors and finally selected us. And we ended up deploying between 2005 and 2010 on their network the first commercial push-to-talk network, push-to-talk service based on IMS. That was a very successful service. We ended up launching maybe, I think, 40 models of devices on different operating systems like Linux and Symbian. So fast forward, we started looking at voice over LTE, and of course RCS. Those were the next two big IMS supposedly to be deployed. It took a while to happen. VoLTE was first deployed in 2012, and I guess we were the first device software that was launched on the Verizon network. So we had our first a voice call done in around 2012 or so. RCS was the next thing that was supposed to happen, and it's finally starting to happen now. But if we come to today, I think there is a big opportunity for a revival of IMS and with private 5G networks. And so we'll talk more about what we're doing today later on here.
Yeah. Thanks, Michel. Stephen, over to you. There's a lot to unpack there. Michel went over a lot of three-letter acronyms. We'll try to
Sure.
maybe apply more industry lens to this.
Sure thing. So, by way of introduction, Stephen Spellicy, been in leadership positions in product companies for decades now, making world-class software and hardware-related products. My background is principally in telecom technologies with an emphasis on software development, areas like analytics, AI, as well as reporting and observability type technologies. In just full disclosure, I'm an advisor to Ecrio and very pleased to be associated with Michel. My background in the telecom space and many of the companies I've worked for serving that sector has led me to, provide enough experience and advice and guidance to Michel as he continues to scale this out. Outside of telecom, my focus has classically been in the enterprise, and this is where we're seeing an emergence of use cases around private mobile networking and the use of technology like voice-related technologies to be able to augment operationally areas in manufacturing, in retail, in oil and gas, mining. The possibilities are endless. I like to say that Ecrio provides foundational voice and collaboration-related features that are essential for the success of any private mobile network. And as you look at the industrialization, sort of a digital transformation, and the next sort of step in Industry 4.x, it's this sort of hybrid of not only data-related applications, but interactive applications, and voice is just the cornerstone of interaction.
That's fantastic. Both Michel and Stephen, both of you came up with such elegant points about the future of the industry. So I'm just going to take a tack on, since we talked about messaging. Conversations today have just taken on a different meaning. If you have the average conversation with someone of my age versus someone who is like, half my age, you'd probably have a different conversation set, which is how to use, over-the-top applications. We move from, messaging to IMs and Slacks, and, all the things that we have traditionally known in the background in terms of architecture. That's changed from a consumer as well as an enterprise standpoint. So I love the explanation you gave in terms of enterprise applications. And I think, that becomes the cornerstone of how we design new products and new services for the space. So just help us kind of distill the landscape, if you will, the present challenges for things like service providers or enterprises. How do these private networks, which talk about secure, scalable, and intuitive architecture, I'm not using AI, but similar, how does it kind of apply, and how do you think of it from your perspective as you service your customers?
Okay. Well, we're seeing it's very interesting, and there's very good questions. But with private networks are starting to happen, right? And we're seeing the whether it's with LTE or with 5G, and they're being built, and then very, very first thing that an enterprise would ask you, hey, what can I do with my network? And voice becomes something that is important. Now, of course, you put together the network. You could say always I could have over-the-top voice, but what happens if the network is disconnected? So not connected to the cloud, and there are plenty of use cases where you would find that in the defense market and oil and gas, or what happens if the network is connected from time to time but get disconnected sometimes.
Sure.
So Well, having a reliable voice service
Mhm.
becomes important. So once you have that, I think you can start building up on that. I mean, is it
Mhm.
only for person to person? Is it human to machines? Do you want to add IoT devices? Do you want to add a drone in your contact list? And do you want to have cameras feeds in that? So that's where we see the private networks wanting to use communications and where
Mhm.
communications become so important.
I would just add in those environments which are, really sensitive, related to either regulatory or security oriented environments. Military and defense would be one of them. I have some experience working for a large defense contractor. And this is, the application of having your own private network for a military installation, to be able to control communications for command and control, and be able to have, beyond, any uncertainty that communication is going to be reliable, it's going to be secure,
Mhm.
it's going to be, able to withstand any kind of congestion in the network, and be able to have the controls in place in order to deliver that reliable service. And so, we're starting to see this, private mobile networking, as Michel mentioned, the disconnection from the cloud becomes almost like air gapping, becomes a
Mhm.
new requirement. And so, how do you survive in an air gapped environment where it's meant
Yep.
to be highly secure but still performant and reliable? And I think the freedom comes in having a tool set and a set of capabilities through a rich application framework, which is what Ecrio really provides, in that they can bring this solution to multiple verticals. It's very simple, easy to deploy, highly reliable. And I think what's exciting mostly about what they're doing is that it works out of the box with many of the known network equipment providers. So as they start to solution with some of the other vendors in the ecosystem,
Mhm.
reliability, certification, all of those things become very important, and the applications work as they're supposed to.
Yep. Yeah.
Before Joe jumps in, I'm going to say this. I'm so glad that you made a distinction about this industrial as well as the enterprise side of it, because every time I call my son, he says, "Who talks?"
There's like serious applications you need to have reliability and
Yeah.
flow
So,
control. I mean, OTT, Zoom is hard. You never know when the other
Yeah.
person stops talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think on that defense vertical that you made the point about, so Michelle, if I remember correctly, you recently made an announcement with some Indian Army, is it, around something
Yeah,
in this space?
we made an announcement. It was in August, I believe, or in September of last year. So we were selected by the India Defense to for network in a box. I mean, again, they had built a network in a box, but the very first question they ask you, hey, how many simultaneous calls can I do on that box, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
or can I do push to talk? Can I do mission
Hmm.
critical stuff? So
Yep.
yeah, so the key to that selection was the fact that our software was very small in footprint,
Hmm.
and we're able in a portable network in a box, being able
Hmm.
to deliver on what they were looking for in terms of communications among the soldiers, yeah, basically.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. I think defense verticals where you cannot rely on over the top and you have to have this contained cell on a wheel kind of an application. And yes, at that point, messaging and voice are very critical applications that are needed. So you seem to be in the perfect spot to tap into that. That's great. Now, pivoting our conversation, we are product thinkers. We love talking about product thinking, and product thinking is about customer centricity, business value, and iterative approach. So, for the rest of the conversation, we want to use those three pillars to frame the conversation and help illustrate Acrio's journey. So, let's start with customer centricity. So, Michelle, can you think of something from your history or recent experiences where being intensely centered around the customer has helped you navigate this market as it has evolved from the journey where you started from the device side to where you are now?
Well, let me see. In terms of customer, I like what we've done, and where we're going right now. Especially, I mean, I'm going back to the
Uh-huh.
defense market here. So uh, we it was interesting because as we were starting to market our products for the in the private wireless, so we got approached by a contractor to the Indian defense, and they felt that hey, what we had was absolutely unique, and nobody else had was able. They were not able to find another vendor who could pretty much deliver on what they were looking for. Um, so what we did, I mean, moving forward, is we started spending more and more time on the defense part of it, and started approaching the DoD and talking to different partners, vendors, to see where that would take us. And indeed, what we're finding today, it's I mean across the Defense Department, and whether it's the Air Force, the Navy, the and other uh, part of the defense, and even thinking about retrofitting vehicles, right? Where you could have communications gear, we're finding that defense market is definitely one that would take advantage of what we have. So, having said that, doesn't mean that what we're doing doesn't apply to other verticals. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the same product that we're designing today, we're designing it and developing it for pretty much going into all type of verticals where a private network is important to have in a box.
We were talking earlier about AI and whether or not we were there yet. And I think it's interesting as you look at enterprise verticals across pretty much the enterprise space, you see this emergence of sort of 1+1 use cases. I'll give you an example. Computer vision as an enabling technology. And we joke about metaverse, we joke about augmented reality. Is it real? Are we going to use it? Is there business value? But we're seeing in the walks of my life, we're seeing, um, with respect to using computer vision to solve problems related to, remote technicians who are going to a site. It could be oil and gas. It could be a manufacturing floor, and they are diagnosing issues or doing preventative maintenance, or they're in some kind of search for something, and they don't have all the knowledge, but they have vision, they have access to. And then behind the scenes, they may have access to rich voice and collaboration services that could be powered by a solution like Ecrio, which gives us a 1+1. Even going further, the introduction of generative AI technologies and models to actually help the technicians with an iterative approach to learning more about the environment, asking
Mm-hmm.
questions, tapping into the knowledge base. And as they do more, they learn more because they train those models. And I think it's that combination of things that we're seeing customers start to emerge in the industry saying, look, these are all powerful things. They're all like sort of individual components. When we pull them together, we create actual whole products for the industry. And I think if you look at individual point solutions, it's hard sometimes. When you start to pull these things together and create the pathways between those areas and components, you start to unearth all this amazing potential for customers. And that would just be one simple example where you can plug voice plus computer vision and generative AI, and then you could totally change the world of a technician who's standing in a manufacturing floor trying to keep the production line up and running.
So, Stephen, I mean, this is just music to my ears as I listen through this. And you've actually coined this term industrial metaverse. I think that's just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is that people get trapped in this consumer metaverse, which I think is really further away, and for whatever it's worth.
Yeah.
But this industrial side, I'm move it up into a product strategy kind of discussion. Right? We've seen a lot of technology advancement. Sometimes it's eerie how easily somebody, you were talking about a technician, how closely you're connected to a pipeline or something else, and you wonder who's listening on the other side. And I always ask this question to myself: who's winning and losing these transitions? Today, the talk of the town has moved from a cloud provider to an AI or a generative AI kind of solution. I used to work for a company called Nortel Networks. I don't know if you remember it, but it used to be a behemoth in terms of optical networking. No longer so. So when you see yourself and you think about how you're creating business value and how your customers are seeing value from your products, where does that intersection happen? Which customers and where are the transitions happening, and which customers and services are winning that space? How do you see that?
Yeah, think about all these verticals where you need to have the intelligence, and you need to have quick feedback. Think about defect detection on a manufacturing line, or think about I don't know, object recognition for safety things. Think about workers not wearing helmets and somewhere, and then being able to detect that quickly and provide quick feedback, so that there could be a sudden push-to-talk sessions between a supervisor and an employee. So think about all the frontline workers who cannot use their hands, and they want to. Nowadays, they're using voice only, but then you could very much imagine them with a VR headset and trying to, especially if you have a pass-through going on. So they could be looking. Think about on a manufacturing floor, moving their heads, and that could be whatever they're seeing could be seen by a remote expert. All of these use cases really are going to happen, and they're going to happen, and the communication is going to be a fundamental table stake, if you want, for this to enable all of these use cases.
Well, back to customer centricity, and also product and design thinking, right? How do we get from a concept, which is we could do this, we could do that, to something that somebody is really in need of, and that wants to do a product experimentation that will lead to an innovation, which will lead to a product in market. Now, obviously, from a marketing perspective and from a product management perspective, any smart product company is going to do a segmentation and understand product market fit. But there's also going to be that innovation opportunity to go out and experiment and create new use cases and potentially new approaches to things you don't do today. Finding those disruptive things, like some of the things that Michel just mentioned, which are going to sort of scramble the existing playing field for the way we do things today versus what we'll do tomorrow. They're true technology enablers, which will be disruptive to industries and verticals. But how do you get there? How do you really get there? You got to engage with the customer. You got to really understand what jobs they do, and why would this technology be needed? What pains could be alleviated? What new opportunities could get opened or created? And so that iterative discussion's happening with the Ecrio customer base, as it is with many other companies, around how do we apply what we do well to something you need today, and what about tomorrow? What else are you going to need in the future?
Yep.
Totally.
Yeah, that I think was a great synopsis of applying product thinking to Ecrio's journey in terms of customer centricity, finding the business value, and then iterate to really build the products out. So just touching a little more on the iterative approach, Michel, you started the conversation with Ecrio's journey, and Ecrio has been around for a long time, as has communication and the basic technology, voice or messaging, and the communication software suite that you provide. As we said at the top, it has gone through its hype cycles, ups and downs. You started with on the device side, and have been a leader on the device side. You were doing messaging on the devices, far before Apple or Android or any of the Samsung devices that everybody uses now came into the market. And now you are here enabling messaging and voice applications for human to machine communications for private mobile networks. That and providing a complete suite of device, edge, and the cloud software. So that does seem like it must have taken a lot of iterative approach. So could you walk us through that journey?
Yeah, this is a very interesting journey here, and also a good question to ask, Gaurav. Um, yeah, so indeed, when we started out, we were basically licensing our device software for communications. Having said that, there's no way you could design the device software if you don't understand the infrastructure. So we've always had an infrastructure team that was designing and developing infrastructure software so that we could develop our own device software and make it very optimized. So, and that also served another purpose. It was once our customers, the OEMs, the device OEMs, were taking our software for implementing them on their phones or integrating in the phones. We would also provide them our infrastructure software, or test, if you want, for testing and validating the software before they went out and tested on the operators' networks. So we've always had that software that was very much optimized, small in footprint, was always fitting in a kind of mini appliance running Linux. So it was a very small fit. So we've always had, if you want, the end-to-end solutions, but we never went to market with the infrastructure software. It was just going and bundling it for the device makers. Now you fast forward, and about a few years back, we just realized that the infrastructure software for communications and the large infrastructure providers that were providing in communications, like let's say for an AT&T or Verizon, like 100, 200 million subscribers, they were having difficulty scaling that down to just 50 users or 100 users or even 10,000 users in a cost-effective way. So we said, wow, we have the product already. It's just a matter of repackaging it and using it for private 5G. So this is how we got into this private 5G end-to-end offer.
Yep, that's fascinating. Arjun, you may relate that to our VPC single instance journey back in. Stephen, anything you would like to add from the industry?
I was around for part of that journey, so I remember that too. Yeah, I mean, I think evolution happens as a result of changing market requirements, and Michel's mentioned a few, and there are some dynamics in the market, but it's about adaptability. So really good product companies who think about not only their core assets, but what's the next thing that I need to develop to address that new market need. And what's exciting about some of the things that you'd say that Ecrio has done in the sort of life cycle or lifetime, they're fundamental services that you would just assume have to be there. Like we talked about, OTT is a different approach to native voice, but when you go dig under the surface, you're like, well, that only works if all the conditions are met, right? Like if you've got network connectivity and you're using the internet, but if you're not, you can't. So these new requirements start to emerge. Customers keep us on our toes, and it forces us to be adaptive, and think about, well, how do we approach this differently? And I think that's what they've been able to do now for well over a decade, and be able to address not only the existing requirements, but those near-term and emerging requirements. And then I think they've done a really awesome job of being crafty, of positioning their core technology to address new problems. It's like new problems to them, but yet they're still their core technology addresses those problems just as well as they did the initial requirement they built the product for.
I completely agree with you, Stephen.
Yeah. So thanks, Michelle and Stephen. This has been a fascinating conversation. I think we've covered the three aspects of product thinking and Ecrio's journey. Wish you all the best for the upcoming Mobile World Congress, and for anybody at Mobile World Congress who's tuning into this podcast, have a great show. Have a wonderful show, and yeah, don't drink too much kava or sangria. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.